Well folks, I'm back working on the Mk2 Golf today, addressing the issue with the corrosion under the rear light that I showed you in the previous video about this car. So now it's time to actually cut this rust out and get it repaired. First thing we're going to need to do is make a template for this repair patch. Now the fortunate thing here is this bit here is actually all just one piece of metal. There is unfortunately though a hole there, so that will also have to be addressed. So I know full well that there's never less rust than you're expecting. So all we can do is just kind of get stuck in with the grinder and find out how much metal we actually need to remove. That kind of thing we're going to have to make on the fly to a certain degree, but what I'll do is, before we even touch that, I'm going to get the piece of metal in here and get that all addressed. Now I have a weld through primer and I have rust converter and stuff like that as well, so we're going to be using that. So let's get the patch repair, or the template made. Oh look, there we go. Here's one I made earlier. So yeah, that's already done. It's a bit of card, and you just cut it to the correct shape, and that means that now we can use that to cut out our piece of steel. So what I've done here is just made a shadow with a can of spray paint just to know where to cut it out. You can use a Sharpie either, but I just find this works for me. But whatever works for you is the right way to do it. Right, so there's our rough cut there now. So I'm going to just tidy that up with the grinder, take the corners off it and all that sort of stuff, and get that tidied up. And then we'll offer it up onto the car and see how it looks. Alright, so there we go. There is the piece of metal cut out. Just take your time with the grinder, folks. That's all you need to do. I'm sure if you've gotten to the point where you're actually considering bodywork, you're no stranger to using a grinder anyway, so I spared you the detail on that. So that's our repair panel there now, and what I've done is I copied this out onto the piece of steel again to make exactly the same one for the other side, the mirror image obviously. So we will be doing both sides, but for this video we're just going to focus on the one side. So next thing to do is to start cutting out some rusty metal and treating it. This is where this YouTuber starts to get a little bit nervous. Alright, so I suppose the thing is here is that I don't want to cut out any more metal than I have to. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to run the cutting disc along there and then just basically see if we can get this bit of metal out. I'm going to leave this here, the light, the part that the light attaches to, and see if we can kind of just treat that and get it to a point where it's solid enough to mount the light to without having to cut that out too, because that'd be a bit of a mess of a fabrication job, especially for somebody like me who's really not that experienced in this kind of stuff. So gloves and glasses on, and we'll have at it. Wish me luck, folks. Oh yes, somebody has definitely been here before, because that is filler. Now I'm just going to get what I want to do is see if I can, well, I'll just cut the last little bit of that there and see if we can get in underneath that there, and alright, let's see if we can get just pry that up now without having to grind underneath it. Alright, well there's a nice big wedge of filler anyway. That's bloody hell. Alright, worse than I thought, but that's always going to be the case with these things. I'll have to do some grinding here as well. That's alright. That's what we signed up for, really. Now just to show you up close, you can see there's a kind of a lip here, and then that's the rusty old shite we're trying to cut out here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just try and grind down to that lip along here, and then we will be able to, now we're going to need to treat along there too, but that's another concern. We'll focus on this first of all, then we'll get so let's just get the grinder out. I might actually put a flap disc on the grinder just to take care of that. We'll try and cut that, and then we'll get the flap disc to take the rest of it off. Alright, I have a grinding disc on this actually, so this should do the trick now. Let's see how we go. Seam sealer. there's a bit of rust along here, as I've shown you already. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a tape line along the seam, so that I don't want to go any lower than that seam, because at least it means it's a nice easy place to kind of blend in the paint. Now the local motor factories actually mixes up paint. I've never gotten paint off them before, so we'll see how they do. If it's they do other painting supplies and stuff like that as well, so hopefully now it'll be decent quality and a close enough match. So let's see, we'll just leave it at that for the moment. I'm going to just grind away down there, and you can see here now it's really starting to come good there. What I'll do is I'll tidy it up with a wire wheel as well afterwards, and kind of get rid of the last of the rust and try and get in behind it. Now we have rust converted brush on, and I have weld through primer, all this kind of stuff. So there's a few little pinholes and stuff here, and yeah, the piece here, the little kind of support piece here is gone, so I don't think we need it. I think we'll be able to actually kind of weld a seam along there. It'll work. Look, it's not a structural component, you know what I mean? It's just the way the car was built. So yeah, let's just keep going anyway. We're making progress. I'm quite happy with how far we've gotten so far. Now let's just offer our repair panel up here and see how it's looking now. So that's going to go in there, and then probably cut a little bit high there, but look, we'll make it work. Well, no, maybe not actually. Yeah, a little bit of jiggery pokery is what's needed here anyway. Either way, I'm going to have to patch that part there too. But I'm going to, as I said, I'm going to deal with this bit first. There's going to have to be a seam welded along there. Now, I honestly think I'm going to have to go a little bit further in with this, because what I want to do is line it up with the seam here. Yeah, that's what way it is on the other side. So that's kind of what we will be doing. But that's all right. You know, you're better off leaving a little bit excess when you're making your repair panels, rather than cutting too much off and then having to make a new one. Measure twice, cut once, isn't that what they say? Anyway, it'll be grand. It'll be grand. Yeah, that's better. Now, need to tidy up along the bottom there too. Yeah, that's not bad actually. I mean, it'll work. So there's a few little pinholes there. We're going to be welding along there anyway, so I'm hoping I'll be able to zap them with the welder and just kind of sort them out that way. But we're going to have to get our weld through primer on and all that now in a little while too. If I were to cut out there a bit, that might help me too. Okay. Well, that actually lets the repair patch sit flat there, and I'm going to be buzzing it in along there. There's going to be another piece coming up off that, and then once we've got it welded, we're going to be dressing up the weld and all that too. I think it'll work. Kind of has to, really, doesn't it? Sort of I'm in this deep now, so I kind of have to make it work. Right, okay, so next step is, I suppose, mask everything up, and I need to take the paint off the bottom of that. So a bit more grinding involved there. I'm not going to worry too much about that bit, because as I said, I'm going to be kind of patching that in, and we'll be getting a kind of a triangle piece there for that. But that bit along there is the bit that's going to be welded onto this. So when we have this welded on first, then we'll be kind of pulling that up to there to meet that, and then hopefully it'll work for us. Get some of that, more of that seam sealer out there. The more I grind along here, the more I realise that's all bloody filler. Why does that not surprise me? It was the same guy who painted the Beetle painted this car. He did this car first, and it looked okay superficially, so I thought it was alright. But no, it's not. Because he was supposed to have repaired this section, not just filled it. It's rotten. It's completely rotten. So all that needs to be cut out as well. That's going to be tricky. Alright, well look, I suppose the advantage I have here at this moment in time as well is I do have the repair section that I can first of all copy off. If that's kind of where I'd go at this point if I need to copy off it. But if I have to use it, I might, and I'm kind of in two minds about that. It's just because the thing is the repair section I have actually has that same section as rotten. It's not rotten. It's just it's got surface rust on it. But like, all right. So here we are. So first of all, oh Jesus, that is not supposed to be sticking up. It's supposed to be bent back like that. And there's only a bracket for wiring to attach to. And then you've literally, I mean, I could use that section. It might get me out of a bind. I think I might actually go about this. Let me do some thinking here. Alright, so the time has come to make the decision to use this piece as well. So what I'm doing is I'm going to cut down along there, up as far as the top of the top corner of the light, down there, and along there. And I'm still going to use the new piece of, the new repair piece that I've actually made for here as well. Because it's actually thicker metal, it's 0.9, and I'd say this is 0.8. And this one's a bit rusty and the other piece is new metal. So just seems to make good sense to me at this moment in time. So get the grinder down along there, and then I'm going to cut up through there, and we're going to have to do a little bit of welding in the boot as well. But look, we're in this deep, so we may as well keep going until we get it right. That'll do the job great. By the way, almost all of the second-hand parts that I buy for this Golf I actually buy off a chap called Niall Clark. Now, he did tell me, by the way, that this did have a little bit of rust on it, so he was 100% honest with me, and I always find him great to deal with. So if you were ever looking for any parts for a Mk2 Golf, I think he does Jettas as well, it's worth a shout. He's on Facebook. Okay, so now it's time to actually start cutting some more metal away from the car. So obviously we have our line down along there already anyway, but what we need to do is we need to cut this bit here, which is going to be up along this section, and I have my vernier calipers, which I'm going to just use to get a couple of our lines. And then you'll see there's a seam on this and a seam here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just measure that and see what we actually have, and I'm going to just go on to this, and I'm just going to mark it on the car, and that'll be our cut line. So we're literally cutting exactly the same bit. Now, if you're gentle with your vernier, you can kind of use the point in it for scratching gently. But I don't subscribe to the theory that you should be too rough with it. Like, so there's our cut line on that section. Now we need to get our cut line up along here. So if we take the center of the hole there to, say, the outside edge of that, and that is going to be right there. All right. So that is so now we've got a mark up there as well. and that is, we're straight across, to be honest with you, so we're not bad in that regard. So we will we'll cut there, and then probably eyeball that. Yeah, kind of get that there. So that'll be fine, and then so we cut all this out and then offer this up, and if we need to make sure the small corrections and stuff like that, we can do that. So I'll just make sure we cut the metal off the car slightly short of the mark, so we can kind of trim back with the grinding disc. Make sure any wiring behind is out of the way. It is, it's well down there. Now, there we go. Nasty rotten metal is gone. And the whole lump of the car is gone. So let's offer up our new piece and see how it looks. A few adjustments are needed. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut there and just take a little bit more of the metal of the car away. Now, I do know I made a mistake in that this bit and this bit, they're too far apart. So we're going to have to correct that. But you know what? It's not the end of the world. We'll be able to do it. It's just, I don't know how I managed that. It's miles off. Alright, obviously I'm not going welding yet, but what we're going to do is just get everything lined up and see how we're looking. Alright, so put that there. I need to leave. I need to get that line there first. There. Okay, so after spilling acetone all over the garage, I decided maybe holding off on the welding might be the best idea at this moment in time. So I'm going to get the weld-through primer put on here. I have everything masked up and everything now, so we'll just give it a coat and leave that to dry, and then we can start kind of getting our repair panel prepped and everything as well, and I'll bring it outside and grind off the extra little bits as well. I don't want to do any grinding in here now either anymore until that acetone is fully evaporated, because I don't fancy burning down my garage. Oh, look at that. I didn't know what colour this was going to be.
It's black.
That's not black.
Brown.
It's kind of copper coloured, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the same colour like pudding.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, folks, it's the following day, and I certainly wouldn't insult the profession by calling what I do welding, but there are two bits of metal stuck together on the car now, so it's on there now. I just basically went ahead a little bit because I was waiting for the garage to warm up a bit, and I just wanted to try out a section and see how we were looking. This bit here, anyway, where I'm after doing it, actually lined up fairly all right. Now there is a bit of a gap further up, which is going to prove a little bit problematic. It shouldn't be a major ordeal, but it'll take a little bit of doing. A grinder and paint makes me the welder I ain't. Okay, so I'm going to keep going basically and try and fill in that gap, and we need to obviously get that in there as well, and we'll kind of move a bit, we'll progress things before we start trying to dress up welds and putting on primer and all that kind of carry on. But already that seam there is looking an awful lot more presentable. I mean, yeah, the weld looked bogey enough until I ground it back, but it's a gasless MIG. It's like, you know, that flux cord welding wire, which is shite by any measure, you know, but look, it's what I have and it's what I'm using, so work with what you have, folks. That's basically it. I'm just giving this a bit of a tickle just to try and take a bit more material off it to try and get it to fit in underneath there. It's not bad at that now. I mean, we could give that a tack, but the only thing is then I'd like to probably take a little bit of material off the top. Now let's just get a vice grips onto that and hold it in place while we mark things up. I find actually, I've sprayed it all well through primer, as I'm sure you can see, and what I'm finding with the well through primer is it's really handy for marking everything out, because scribe lines transfer really well onto the paint. Now, so let's see. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trace this up along here, and then if we, like that's flush with that, and that'll need to come out a little bit there, and I'll get you guys in a bit closer so you can kind of see a bit better. So along here now, if we just give that a tickle with the grinder, just so that it kind of lines up nicely along with this edge here of the car, and then we can give a snot of weld there and do along this seam here, and then we can work our way down there, and then that'll be basically that, and then we can kind of focus our attention to this bit here, and our aperture for the light cluster should be fairly good at that stage. Then I'm going to leave that vice grips in. Well, actually I have to take it off to take that material off there, so let's just do that. Not a huge amount, a couple of millimeters is all it is really. I suppose the thing about it is that I kind of, the way I cut the other the other piece of material, it's just the way it's worked out. Alright, so I've given that a tickle with the grinder there now, so that'll work out nicely there now. So what we'll do is we'll clamp everything up and start welding. Alright, so I'm going to stick a few tacks along there and maybe one there, and I'm going to just offer up I'll take the grips off and we will offer up the light cluster and see if it fits the aperture alright, because obviously, because of the fact that we can't alter the aperture of the actual light cluster itself, and we certainly shouldn't have to, we need to make sure that that's right, that opening is right. Now, and it should be, but just the point from that to that, like that's the original part of the car, and then that's the new patch, so it could be wrong. It probably will be, knowing me. Alright, moment of truth. Does the light cluster fit? Yeah, it does. It's a little bit tight up the top, but you know what? What way does it need to go? If there's a half a mil in it, that's literally it. So I think I could probably live with that. So yeah, I mean, if I egged out that hole ever so slightly, the whole thing will sit into place an awful lot neater. That being said, I actually don't need to. It will actually pull in, and especially when the gasket's all on and everything like that as well, it'll sit fine. So we'll keep going. Right, look, I'm going to keep going off camera anyway and save myself all the editing of basically shortening down this footage, because it can take ages doing that. But I'm going to do the seam down there, along there, and then we'll try and dicky that up. And when I'm doing that bit over there, then I'll bring you back. Alright, it's hardly what I'd call a stack of pennies, but I'm actually able to fill in the space just by welding along the seam. Now, I've already got over here done, and skim seam sealer will do all right. Now, it's very hard to get into the corner there to kind of dicky that up. And I know it's bogey, folks. I really do know. I'm not a professional welder or a professional panel beater, as you can probably tell. But I'm winging it, and it's turning out all right. It'll be a solid piece of repair work after it's finished. It might not be the prettiest, but it'll do. And it's certainly a hell of a lot better than what was there before. You know what, folks? I think that's passable. It's not great, but I was able to fill in the space with welding. So, yeah, once I've ground that back and everything, it should look absolutely fine. And then I can give it a lick of paint, and you'll never know. Well, you will, but it'll be better than it is at the moment. The last thing to do now is to get the piece in along here, and then that's basically all of the repair work around the rear light cluster done. Okay, so I've started welding in this final piece along here now, and you can see actually welding is coming on a little bit better now. It's definitely I definitely think a little bit of practice will get me somewhere on this now. But yeah, I'm gonna keep going anyway. Get this last bit all put in, and that's basically all the welding done. And it's just a case of tidying up and painting it. Well, there we have it. There's all the welding finished anyway, and the welds are kind of dressed up well enough for the purposes of this exercise. Fortunately enough, none of them are going to be in kind of areas where you'll see unless you were looking for it. So I didn't kind of go too mad with sort of filling or anything like that. It's fine. I mean, look, they're solid, and you know, it's new metal. So whatever way you twist and turn it, I didn't use any filler here. So the last thing I'll do now is I'll get some seam sealer and go across these bits here as well. Make sure no water's going to get in there, and then we'll call it a win. Okay, so the local motor factors were sold out of seam sealer, so I'm just going to use Tiger Seal. It'll do fine. The paint doesn't adhere to it as well, but where we're talking about here, it's not really going to matter a huge amount. So the other thing as well I need to do with this is get a pair of rear light gaskets. So in this video what I'll do is I'll show you the rear light, how the rear lights look after I've installed them, but I won't be properly installing them. So that'll be just a job I'll do off camera. Now, you can, here's a little trick for you. You can use a bit of soapy water on your finger to smooth things out, or you can just do this. That works a treat. See that? Okay, so it's time for paint. I have to apologise for the noise in the background, but that's the garage heater, and it's kind of important at the moment. We're going to be applying paint, so we need to get the garage nice and warm. So first is this anti-corrosion epoxy primer. So we're going to give it 2 or 3 coats of that first of all, and let that set, and then we give it the final top coat and see how we're looking then. Just while I was waiting for the paint to dry on the other side, I just took out the light cluster on this side just to have a look and see how we're looking. It's certainly an awful lot better than the far side, but I'm still going to replace this this section here. I have the metal there and the desire to do it at the moment, so it just seems like good sense. I mean, it's relatively solid. I mean, I could take the grinder to it and see what we're left with afterwards, but I just think maybe at this stage of the game it is better off just to replace it. Alright, so now that the paint is dry on the other side, I was able to just kind of give this a little tickle with the die grinder just to have a look and see how it's looking. I'm not going to replace all of it. I'm just going to replace maybe from here to here, and we'll get some rust converter on it as well, and that should stem the tide of that and get it looking a bit better. And then the rest of it obviously is going to get the seam sealer and all that as well. So yeah, we'll be grand on that side. I think we've just kind of nipped it in the bud just in time. On the other hand, this side now is dry, so I'm going to just run a tack cloth over it, and we're going to give it a lick of paint. I'll turn off the compressor now in a sec as well. Okay, but just give this a bit of a dusting and see how we're looking. I love this colour. Alright, let's let that dry. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the moment of truth is upon us. It's had plenty of time to dry now, so let's peel the tape off and see what we're dealing with. I know the finish isn't perfect, but is it good enough is the question. Okay. You know what, that does not look too bad. As I said, it's not perfect, but it's not bad. Now, what I will do is I'll go over it with a bit of maybe 1500 grit, just kind of shine it up a little bit. You see around there that it's not exactly perfect either, but you know what? For a novice's work, it's not bad at all. Let's offer up the light and see how it looks now with that in place. That, folks, is a win. I'm going to call it at that. That's much better. And the great thing is there, we know there's solid metal in there, so that's fantastic. So I'm absolutely thrilled with that. So now I feel confident to tackle the other side, and hopefully we'll get a similar kind of finish, if not better there. Every bit of this kind of work you do brings you further along towards towards perfection, really, you know, and basically practice makes perfect is what I'm trying to say. But listen, thanks very much for joining me along the way, and I hope maybe you novices out there were given a little bit of confidence to kind of tackle these jobs yourself as well, and maybe even learned a little bit off me. I mean, I certainly learned a bit along the way, so yeah, kind of an enjoyable process, I have to say. So look, thanks very much, and I shall talk to you soon.